This could take a bit of a long route and hurt Lively's case down the road as well.
Blake Lively's attorney, Meryl Gavrnsky, has quit the law firm that she's been working at since at least 2023.
Blake Lively's lawyer has officially bailed after a bombshell lawsuit revelation exposed her roping innocent people into her vendetta with zero evidence. In a moment worthy of reality TV, her own legal team branded her a narcissist and walked out, leaving her case in tatters and her reputation burning to the ground. Honestly, have you ever seen lawyers sprint for the exits like the building was on fire? Welcome to Blake Lively's latest courtroom catastrophe. Her now ex-lawyer, Mariel Jernke, formally quit the circus. And really, who could blame her? Representing Blake Lively these days is about as dignified as trying to calm a screaming toddler throwing cereal across the grocery aisle. You can picture Jernke waking up one morning, staring in the mirror, and deciding, you know what? I'd rather spend my days settling parking ticket disputes than be part of this fiasco. And that's exactly how it went down. The implosion began on May 13th, when Blake's entire legal empire collapsed in the most humiliating, public meltdown imaginable. Court filings dropped like confetti, press stunts blew up in her face, and the PR fallout was so colossal you'd think it was scripted. Even the New York Times, usually her loyal hype machine, couldn't salvage her image. After months of parroting her smear campaign as if it were the gospel truth, they wound up exposed right alongside her. Turns out the only thing getting smeared was Blake's already fragile credibility, but here's what really seals her downfall: the leaks coming straight from her own legal circle. Sources say her team started whispering that she was a fame-obsessed narcissist. And when the lawyers you're paying to defend you start trash-talking you behind closed doors, you've officially hit the bottom of the barrel. Imagine being so fixated on headlines that your attorneys compare representing you to starring in a cheap reality show. That's Blake's life now. Of course, she didn't self-destruct alone. Enter Ryan Reynolds, her so-called secret strategist. You'd assume he'd have the sense to steer clear of this flaming train wreck. But no, Ryan managed to wade into the chaos right alongside her. Word is, he might have misused shareholder money, including Disney funds, to bankroll Blake's legal spectacle. That's right, while you thought Mickey Mouse was busy making feel-good movies, Blake and Ryan were turning Deadpool profits into courtroom theater. Brilliant strategy all around, and if you thought that was the dumbest move in the saga, buckle up, because it gets worse. Let's talk about Vanson Incorporated, or more accurately, Vanson scam. Picture this, September 27, 2024. Blake and Ryan's shady little shell company springs up out of nowhere to file a lawsuit in New York. The complaint is packed with anonymous defendants, because who needs to name names when you think you're above the law? Then public records blew the lid off everything. Vanson Incorporated was revealed to be Blake's personal pet project, where she's listed as CEO, CFO, and secretary, basically, the one-woman show behind the scheme. And, no shocker, Ryan's fingerprints were all over it too. Real power couple. Goals: creating shell companies to settle personal vendettas. Just 4 days later, on October 1st, Blake's legal goon squad went after Stephanie Jones, a PR exec, with a subpoena. Their mission? To dig up dirt on Wayfair and Justin Baldoni, because Blake apparently can't let Baldoni exist without turning it into a legal soap opera. It's like watching someone stalk their ex online, only instead of DMs, it's subpoenas. And honestly, embarrassing doesn't even begin to cover it.
Of course, there's an entirely new claim that comes out at some point during this litigation. And so the impacts of this dismissal are therefore going to be much more complete and obvious on the Wayfarer side of things.
And naturally, this lawsuit vanished just as abruptly as it appeared. By December 19th, 2024, the whole spectacle was quietly withdrawn, poof, gone, like it had never existed. But not before Blake and Ryan's little legal escapade conveniently secured private text messages that magically bolstered her so-called retaliation claims. Funny how that works. They play a quick round of courtroom hide-and-seek, grab the dirt they wanted, and then slip away as if nothing ever happened. Problem was, the media didn't buy the performance for a second. They called it exactly what it was, an abusive stunt exploiting the legal system for petty revenge. Blake turned the courts into her personal stage, and the entire world saw right through the act. But here's the part that really showcases Blake's spectacular lack of legal genius: the infamous text message trap. This was her big, triumphant smoking gun to prove harassment, retaliation, and conspiracy. There was just one little hitch: those texts came straight out of the Vanson lawsuit charade, and the way she got them was borderline criminal. Jennifer A.L., a former PR associate, stepped forward accusing Blake's team of outright pirating her phone. And Stephanie Jones, the same PR exec who got slapped with that subpoena, allegedly helped comb through private phone contents, trampling over every privacy right in sight. Imagine being so desperate to prove a point that you're willing to break privacy laws just to grab a few receipts. That's the Blake Lively strategy in a nutshell, and if you thought the scheming stopped there, think again. Once they snagged those messages, Blake did exactly what any PR-obsessed Hollywood narcissist would do next. They stripped those messages of every scrap of context, fed them straight to the New York Times, and turned them into splashy front page headlines. Overnight, Blake's flimsy lawsuit looked like it actually had teeth, all thanks to cherry-picked texts and some grade-A media spin. But here's the problem: actual lawyers weren't buying it. They shredded her so-called evidence in record time. Turns out there wasn't a shred of proof that Wayfair targeted Blake because she made any protected complaints. No credible timeline. No motive. Just a pile of selectively edited messages designed to make her look like a victim. It was basically the legal equivalent of screenshotting your group chat and forgetting to include the parts where you sound completely unhinged. Classic Blake move. Meanwhile, her legal team's patience was circling the drain. Even they started to see her entire case was held together with duct tape, social media hype, and pure delusion. Relying on manipulated texts and shady subpoenas isn't exactly the winning formula in court. But when you're Blake Lively, why bother with real evidence when you can stage a public meltdown and call it justice? Her lawsuit was never about facts. It was about engineering a narrative, her favorite buzzwords dressed up as legal claims, propped up by Ryan's half-baked strategy, and a courtroom full of lawyers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. And now, the cracks are impossible to ignore. Her lawyer has walked out, the PR shields are collapsing, and all that's left is a hollow case spiraling into chaos. The Blake's strongest claim, well, in her head, anyway, is this retaliation fantasy. Under California's government code. Basically, it says an employer can't punish you for reporting harassment or misconduct. Simple enough, unless you're Blake Lively, who's somehow turned even that into a three-ring circus. But let's be honest, California already stretches the definition of employee, so far it snaps like a cheap rubber band. If you so much as glance at a film set in Los Angeles, you probably count as staff. And even with that generous interpretation, Blake's claim is so weak it makes expired yogurt look rock solid. Her whole argument hinges on the idea she suffered workplace harassment from Justin Baldoni, the same guy she's been legally stalking for months. And here's where her story falls apart completely: the timeline. She's yelling retaliation, but the supposed retaliation didn't happen until 9 months to a full year after filming ended. You heard that right, an entire year later. Suddenly, everyone's plotting revenge. Girl, come on. By that logic, if I stubbed my toe last summer, my neighbor must be mowing the lawn this week to get back at me. Make it make sense, but of course, this is Blake, so she keeps waving around the same tired, smoking gun texts she pilfered during the Vanson charade, acting like they're irrefutable proof. Spoiler alert, they're not. Those texts, as embarrassing as they are, don't show that Wayfair did anything in response to her alleged complaints. No motive, no timeline, no evidence, just the usual lively PR theater with a side of manipulation. It's like she's trying to bake a cake without flour, eggs, or any shred of logic, and expects everyone to swallow it anyway. And now, with Baldoni's defamation claims dismissed and his deadline to refile officially expired, her legal position is collapsing faster than her last Deadpool punchline in court. Baldoni isn't coming back to clean up this disaster for her. He missed the deadline, sure, but what that really means is Blake has no one left to pin the blame on, no convenient scapegoat to prop up her collapsing story, and zero backup plans. Her retaliation claim is basically gasping for air while everyone, including her own legal team, can smell the desperation a mile away. But buckle up, because it only goes downhill from here. Next came the legendary trifecta: sanctions, smoke show, screenshots, and the subpoena circus, starring Blake Lively herself. Let me set the scene for you. April 2024 rolls around, and Blake and Ryan decide to flood the court docket with over 12 motions. Yes, more than a dozen filings, 2 of which were sanctions requests so lazy, legal insiders actually called them copy-paste jobs. You know your strategy's in the trash when your work gets compared to a bad high school essay someone plagiarized the night before it was due, and the chaos didn't stop there. Behind the scenes, court insiders were gossiping like teenagers at lunch. They said the motions were so flimsy even first-year law students wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. Blake's entire playbook had officially morphed into a collection of PR stunts masquerading as legal arguments. It was like submitting your Instagram captions as evidence and hoping the judge appreciates your aesthetic, but Blake just couldn't help herself. Her obsession with controlling the narrative has gone from questionable to outright deranged. She was out here demanding gag orders to silence critics and trying to bury discovery materials like they were scandalous reality TV outtakes. And in the most unhinged twist yet, she even targeted Taylor Swift's phone records. Yes, Taylor Swift, who was minding her own billionaire business, got yanked into Blake's drama parade because apparently Blake can't function without turning everything into a public spectacle. Meanwhile, her legal team was disintegrating faster than her claims. Insiders described them as mentally fried, scrambling to contain filings that had spun so far out of control even courtroom veterans couldn't keep track. You know it's bad when people are saying your lawyers look like they've aged a decade in a single trial. Then came May 13th, the day it all combusted. Brian Friedman's team, basically the last adults in the room, dropped a brutal letter that handed Blake her ego on a silver platter. They exposed her sanctions push as legally baseless, emotionally manipulative, and frankly, downright pathetic. Imagine being so reckless that the other side has to file paperwork politely explaining that your strategy reads like it was cooked up during a group therapy session, and believe it or not, we're still not done with Blake Lively's courtroom delusions. Because next, she decided to weaponize Deadpool and Disney. I'm not kidding. Her masterstroke was slipping Deadpool and Wolverine movie clips into the record to prove Baldoni's alleged malice. That's right, her big legal argument was literally a Marvel meme.